In the heart of London, where ancient traditions meet modern threats, a single radio transmission would test the loyalty of a man sworn to protect the crown. Detective Sergeant Marcus Thompson had spent 12 years safeguarding the royal family, but nothing could have prepared him for the moment when his superior's voice crackled through his earpiece with an order that would shake him to his core. "Stand down, Thompson. Let it happen." Those 5 words, spoken on a rainy Tuesday morning in October 2023, would force a decorated royal protection officer to choose between following orders and following his conscience. What unfolded in the next 72 hours would expose a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of the palace security apparatus, threatened the life of 8-year-old Prince Louis, and ultimately redefine what it means to serve the crown. This is the true story of how one man's refusal to obey a shocking command saved a young prince's life and uncovered a plot that would have changed the course of British history forever. Detective Sergeant Marcus Thompson adjusted his earpiece as he scanned the crowded courtyard of Lambeth School. The autumn morning was crisp, and parents were arriving to drop off their children for another day of classes. Among them, 8-year-old Prince Louis walked hand in hand with his nanny, chatting excitedly about his upcoming art project. To the casual observer, Marcus looked like any other parent, dressed in casual clothes and carrying a newspaper. But beneath his jacket, his trained eyes were constantly moving, assessing every face, every movement, every potential threat. Marcus had been part of the Royal Protection Unit for 12 years. He had started as a regular police constable in Manchester, working the rough neighborhoods where violence was a daily reality. His quick thinking and unwavering dedication had caught the attention of his superiors, leading to his recruitment into the specialized world of royal security. Over the years, he had protected various members of the royal family during public engagements, private events, and international travels. But for the past 3 years, his primary assignment had been the protection of Prince Louis. The young prince was different from his older siblings. Where Prince George was serious and Princess Charlotte was confident, Louis was curious and adventurous. He had a habit of wandering off during public events, drawn by interesting sounds or sights that caught his attention. This made Marcus's job both challenging and rewarding. The boy's innocent enthusiasm reminded Marcus why his work mattered beyond protocol and procedure. On this particular Tuesday morning, everything seemed normal. Marcus positioned himself at his usual spot near the school's entrance, where he could observe both the arriving students and the surrounding area. His colleague, Detective Constable Sarah Mitchell, was stationed at the school's rear exit, while another team member monitored the perimeter from a vehicle parked across the street. As Prince Louis disappeared into the school building with his classmates, Marcus felt the familiar sense of responsibility settle over him. The next 8 hours would require constant vigilance until the prince was safely back at Kensington Palace. He had performed this routine hundreds of times, but Marcus never allowed himself to become complacent. In his line of work, complacency could be deadly. At precisely 10:30 a.m., Marcus received his first routine check-in call from headquarters. Inspector David Hartwell's voice came through clearly on his secure radio channel. "Thompson, status report. All clear, sir. Target safely inside the building. Perimeter secure." Marcus responded, using the standard terminology that had become second nature to him. "Copy that. Maintain position. Next check-in at 1,200 hours." Marcus settled in for what he expected to be a quiet morning. The school had excellent security measures in place, with controlled access points and a staff that had been thoroughly vetted. The surrounding neighborhood was safe, populated by families who valued privacy and security as much as the royal family did. However, As Marcus reviewed his mental checklist of potential risks, he noticed something unusual. A maintenance van had been parked across from the school since early morning. While maintenance work around the school was not uncommon, something about this particular vehicle caught his attention. The van was positioned to have a clear view of the main entrance, and Marcus had not seen anyone enter or exit the vehicle since his arrival. Marcus made a note to investigate the van during his next patrol round. He pulled out his phone and discreetly took a photo of the vehicle's license plate, planning to run a background check through the police database. In royal protection work, there was no such thing as being too cautious. The morning progressed without incident until around 11:45 a.m., when Marcus noticed increased activity around the maintenance van. A man in work clothes emerged from the vehicle and began unloading equipment. From Marcus's vantage point, the man appeared to be setting up some kind of electronic device, though the distance made it difficult to determine exactly what he was doing. Marcus activated his radio to report the suspicious activity to headquarters. "Control, this is Thompson. I have a maintenance worker setting up equipment across from the school entrance, requesting background check on vehicle registration number." He read off the license plate number he had photographed earlier. The response came quickly. "Thompson, stand by. Running the check now." While waiting for the background information, Marcus continued to observe the maintenance worker. The man was methodical in his setup, positioning what appeared to be a directional antenna toward the school building. This type of equipment could be used for legitimate purposes, such as testing communication systems, but it could also be used for surveillance or signal interception. "Thompson, this is Control. The vehicle registration checks out. It belongs to Davidson Communications, a company contracted for routine maintenance on the area's cellular towers. The work order shows scheduled maintenance for today's date." Marcus acknowledged the information, but remained suspicious. While the paperwork might check out, his instincts told him something was not right. The worker's positioning of the equipment seemed too focused on the school, and his behavior struck Marcus as overly cautious rather than routine. "Control, I'd like permission to conduct a closer inspection of the maintenance operation. Something doesn't feel right about the positioning and timing." There was a pause before Inspector Hartwell responded. "Negative, Thompson. The work order is legitimate, and we don't want to create unnecessary incidents with local contractors." Continue normal observation. Marcus was frustrated by the response, but understood the delicate balance required in royal protection work. Creating false alarms could damage relationships with local authorities and contractors who played important roles in maintaining the secure environment around royal family members. As noon approached, Marcus prepared for his scheduled check-in call. The maintenance worker was still busy with his equipment setup, and Marcus had observed two other individuals in the van who had not yet emerged. This struck him as unusual for a routine maintenance job, which typically required only one or two technicians. At exactly 12 p.m., Marcus's radio crackled to life. But instead of the routine check-in he expected, Inspector Hartwell's voice carried an urgent tone that immediately put Marcus on high alert. "Thompson, we have received credible intelligence about a potential security threat in your area. Prepare for possible extraction of the target." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. In 12 years of royal protection work, he had only been involved in 2 actual emergency situations, and both had turned out to be false alarms. But the tone in Hartwell's voice suggested this was different. "Copy, Control. What's the nature of the threat? Details are still being confirmed. Stand by for further instructions." Marcus immediately shifted into high alert mode. He scanned the area around the school with renewed intensity, paying particular attention to the maintenance van and any other vehicles or individuals that might pose a threat. He also sent a discreet text message to Sarah Mitchell, alerting her to the potential situation without using radio communication that might be intercepted. The next few minutes felt like hours as Marcus waited for additional information. His training kicked in, and he began running through various evacuation scenarios in his mind. The school had multiple exit points, and Marcus knew the layout intimately. If necessary, he could have Prince Louis out of the building and in a secure vehicle within minutes. At 12:07 p.m., Marcus's radio came alive again. But what he heard next would change everything he thought he knew about his mission and his superiors. Thompson, this is Control. New intelligence indicates the threat may be a false flag operation designed to test our response capabilities. Under no circumstances should you initiate evacuation procedures without direct authorization from myself or Deputy Chief Inspector Williams. Marcus was confused by this instruction. In all his years of royal protection work, he had never been told to ignore potential threats or wait for higher authorization before protecting his charge. The standard protocol was to err on the side of caution and remove royal family members from any potentially dangerous situation immediately. Control, can you clarify the source and nature of this intelligence? I need to understand what I'm dealing with out here. Thompson, that's above your clearance level. Just follow instructions and maintain your position. Do not, repeat, do not take any action without my direct order. The conversation ended abruptly, leaving Marcus more confused and concerned than before. In 12 years of service, he had never been given such contradictory instructions. His training told him to trust his superiors and follow orders, but his instincts told him something was seriously wrong with the situation. Marcus looked back toward the maintenance van and noticed that the worker had finished his setup and was now talking on a mobile phone while looking directly at the school entrance. The conversation appeared animated, with the worker gesturing toward the building where Prince Louis was attending classes. As Marcus tried to process the conflicting instructions from headquarters and his own observations of suspicious activity, he realized he was facing a situation unlike anything he had encountered before. The safety of 8-year-old Prince Louis might depend on decisions he would have to make in the next few minutes, decisions that could define the rest of his career and potentially save or cost a young life. The radio crackled once more, and Inspector Hartwell's voice carried a tone that Marcus had never heard before, cold, calculated, and unmistakably threatening. Thompson, there's been a change in protocol. When I give you the next instruction, you'll follow it precisely. No questions, no hesitation. Do you understand? Marcus felt a chill run down his spine as he responded, "Copy, Control." But even as he acknowledged the instruction, Marcus knew that whatever came next would test every principle he had sworn to uphold when he took his oath to protect the royal family. The next radio transmission would force him to choose between blind obedience and protecting the innocent child whose safety had been entrusted to him. The call that would change everything came at exactly 12:15 p.m. Marcus was still watching the maintenance van when Inspector Hartwell's voice crackled through his earpiece with words that made his blood run cold. "Thompson, we have confirmed intelligence that Prince Louis is not the actual target. There will be a staged incident at 1:30 p.m. involving a mock kidnapping attempt. Your orders are to stand down and allow the scenario to play out. This is a high-level security exercise designed to test our response protocols." Marcus felt his world tilt. In 12 years of royal protection work, he had participated in many training exercises, but they were always conducted with proper advance notice, clear safety protocols, and never involved actual royal family members. The idea that 8-year-old Prince Louis would be subjected to a mock kidnapping without his knowledge struck Marcus as not just wrong, but potentially traumatic for the child. Control, I need clarification on this order. Are you instructing me to allow unknown individuals to approach and potentially harm Prince Louis? Thompson, you're not to interfere with the exercise. The participants are trained professionals, and the prince will not be harmed. This comes from the highest levels of authority. Your job is to observe and report, nothing more. Marcus is training Ward with his conscience. Every instinct honed over 12 years of protecting people told him this was wrong. But questioning direct orders from his superiors could end his career and potentially land him in serious legal trouble. Sir, I request confirmation of this order through written channels. This goes against every protocol I've been trained to follow. The response was immediate and harsh. Thompson, you will follow orders without question. Any deviation from these instructions will be considered insubordination and will result in immediate termination and criminal charges. Do you understand? Marcus understood more than Inspector Hartwell realized. The threatening tone, the refusal to provide written confirmation, and the order to allow potential harm to come to Prince Louis all pointed to something far more sinister than a training exercise. Copy, Control, Marcus replied, but his mind was already racing through alternatives. Over the next few minutes, Marcus observed increased activity around the maintenance van. 2 more individuals emerged, all wearing work clothes, but moving with the fluid coordination of trained operatives rather than maintenance workers. They began setting up additional equipment that looked nothing like standard telecommunications gear. Marcus discreetly photographed the activity with his phone while pretending to read his newspaper. Something about the men's movements and equipment setup reminded him of his early days in the military, when he had worked with special forces units. These were not maintenance workers. They were professionals preparing for an operation. At 12:30 p.m., Marcus made a decision that would define the rest of his career. He sent a coded text message to Sarah Mitchell, code yellow. Personal emergency. Need immediate backup at position 1. In their private communication system, this meant he needed her to come to his location immediately without using official radio channels. Sarah arrived within minutes, approaching casually as if she were another parent picking a child. Marcus quickly briefed her on the situation, including the suspicious orders from headquarters and his observations of the maintenance team. This doesn't feel right. Marcus, Sarah said after hearing the details. In 5 years on this detail, I've never heard of any exercise involving actual royal family members without massive advanced planning and safety protocols. Marcus nodded. I think we're looking at either a rogue operation within our own organization or someone has compromised our command structure. Either way, Prince Louis is in danger. They decided to split their approach. Sarah would maintain her position at the rear exit while staying off official radio channels. Marcus would continue to monitor the front entrance and the suspicious maintenance team. If anything went wrong during the supposed exercise, they would extract Prince Louis through the rear exit and take him to a secure location. At 1 p.m., Marcus received another transmission from Inspector Hartwell. Thompson, the exercise will begin in 30 minutes. Under no circumstances are you to interfere. Teams are in position, and any intervention on your part will compromise the entire operation. Copy, Control, Marcus replied, while silently preparing for the exact opposite of what he had been ordered to do. The maintenance team was now clearly preparing for action. They had positioned their van to block the main street exit from the school, and Marcus could see at least one individual with what appeared to be a weapon concealed under his work clothes. This was definitely not a training exercise. At 1:15 p.m., Marcus noticed a black sedan with tinted windows parking at the far end of the street. The vehicle had government license plates, but Marcus didn't recognize it as part of their official protection detail. 3 men in dark suits emerged and began walking toward the school with purposeful strides. Marcus's radio crackled again. "Thompson, the exercise participants are now approaching your location. Remember, your orders are to observe only." But Marcus was no longer listening to orders from headquarters. His focus was entirely on protecting Prince Louis from what he now understood was a genuine threat. The question was no longer whether to disobey orders, but how to save the child's life while potentially ending his own career and freedom. Marcus activated a backup communication device he carried for true emergencies, a secure phone with a direct line to the Deputy Chief Constable's office, bypassing the normal chain of command. If there was corruption in the Royal Protection Unit, he needed to reach someone outside the compromised system. Deputy Chief Constable Morrison's office came to response after one ring. "This is Detective Sergeant Marcus Thompson, Royal Protection Unit. I need to speak with the Deputy Chief immediately. We have a code red situation involving Prince Louis." "Hold the line, Sergeant." Within seconds, Deputy Chief Constable Morrison was on the phone. Marcus had met him only twice during his career, but Morrison had a reputation as an honest officer who had risen through the ranks based on merit rather than politics. "Thompson, what's your situation?" Marcus quickly outlined everything that had happened, from the suspicious maintenance team to the contradictory orders from Inspector Hartwell. He spoke rapidly but clearly, knowing he might not have much time before the threat materialized. "Thompson, I need you to listen carefully. 3 hours ago, we received intelligence that there might be a plot against Prince Louis, possibly involving corrupted elements within the Royal Protection System. Inspector Hartwell was supposed to be briefed on enhanced security measures, not ordered to stand down protection." Marcus felt a surge of vindication mixed with terror. "Sir, they're moving toward the school now. I count at least 6 individuals who are definitely not maintenance workers. Thompson, I'm authorizing you to take any action necessary to protect Prince Louis. A clean backup team is en route to your location, but they're still 20 minutes away. You need to get the prince out of there now." "Copy, sir. What about my chain of command?" "Your chain of command may be compromised. Follow your training and protect that child. I'll handle the political aftermath." Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He was no longer choosing between orders and conscience. He was following proper orders from legitimate authority while protecting an innocent child. He immediately contacted Sarah through their backup communication system. "Sarah, we're live. Extract the target through rear exit now. This is not a drill, and our command structure has been compromised." "On my way," Sarah responded without hesitation. Marcus began moving toward the school's main entrance, positioning himself between the approaching threat and the building. As he walked, he called the school's main office using his emergency contact protocol. "This is Detective Sergeant Thompson, Royal Protection Unit. We have a code red security situation. Initiate lockdown procedures immediately and move Prince Louis to the secure room. This is not a drill." The school's secretary, who had been briefed on emergency protocols, responded professionally. "Copy, Sergeant. Initiating lockdown now." As Marcus reached the school entrance, he could see the maintenance team abandoning their pretense of work and moving toward the building with clear hostile intent. The men in dark suits were approaching from the other direction, effectively creating a pincer movement that would trap anyone trying to enter or exit through the main entrance. Marcus positioned himself at the entrance and activated his emergency beacon, which would alert all legitimate law enforcement in the area to respond with maximum urgency. He also pulled out his service weapon, knowing that he was about to face multiple armed opponents with only Sarah as backup. His radio crackled one final time with Inspector Hartwell's voice. now openly hostile. Thompson, stand down immediately or face the consequences. You are interfering with a classified operation. Marcus turned off his radio and prepared for the fight of his life. Whatever happened in the next few minutes would determine whether 8-year-old Prince Louis lived or died, and whether Marcus would be remembered as a hero or a rogue officer who destroyed his career chasing paranoid fantasies. As the first of the fake maintenance workers reached the school entrance, Marcus stepped into view with his weapon drawn and his police identification clearly visible. Armed police, stop where you are and identify yourselves. The response came in the form of a weapon appearing in the maintenance worker's hand, confirming Marcus's worst fears about the true nature of the threat. The battle for Prince Louis was about to begin. The first shot shattered the morning calm as Marcus dove behind the school's stone pillar entrance. The bullet struck the wall where he had been standing just seconds before, sending chips of masonry flying. The fake maintenance worker who had fired the shot was already moving to flank Marcus's position while his two companions spread out to create multiple angles of attack. Marcus keyed his emergency radio frequency, broadcasting on all law enforcement channels. Officer under fire at Lambert School. Multiple armed suspects threatening Prince Louis. All units respond immediately. The response was swift but chaotic as various police units tried to understand what was happening. Marcus could hear sirens in the distance, but he knew help was still several minutes away. He had to hold his position and trust that Sarah was successfully evacuating Prince Louis through the rear of the school. Thompson, you're making a serious mistake. The voice came from the lead attacker, who was now using the maintenance van as cover. Stand down and no one gets hurt. Marcus responded by firing 2 quick shots at the van's tires, deflating them and ensuring the vehicle couldn't be used for a quick escape. The return gunfire was immediate and intense, forcing Marcus to stay behind the stone pillar that was his only protection. Inside the school, Marcus knew the lockdown procedures were in effect. All classrooms would be secured, exterior doors would be locked, and Prince Louis would have been moved to the specially reinforced safe room that had been installed as part of the school's security upgrades. The safe room had independent communication systems and could be held securely for hours if necessary. Sarah's voice came through his earpiece on their backup frequency. Marcus, I have the package, but we've got problems back here too. 2 vehicles just blocked the rear parking lot, and I count at least 4 hostiles approaching the building. Marcus felt his stomach drop. This wasn't just an attempted kidnapping. It was a coordinated assault on multiple fronts. Someone had planned this operation with detailed knowledge of the school's layout and the protection team's standard procedures. Sarah, get to the safe room and barricade yourselves in. I'll try to draw their attention to the front. Copy. But Marcus, there's something else. I intercepted radio traffic suggesting this whole thing was orchestrated to frame you as a rogue agent. They're planning to blame you for whatever happens here today. The pieces suddenly clicked into place for Marcus. This wasn't just about kidnapping Prince Louis. It was about destroying Marcus's credibility and possibly eliminating him as a witness to whatever larger conspiracy was at play. Someone with high-level access had planned this operation to achieve multiple objectives. Marcus fired several more rounds at the maintenance van to keep the attackers pinned down while he tried to piece together the larger picture. Inspector Hartwell's behavior, the contradictory orders, and the sophisticated nature of the attack all suggested involvement from within the Royal Protection System itself. His radio crackled with a familiar voice, Inspector Hartwell, broadcasting on the main frequency. All units, be advised that Detective Sergeant Thompson has gone rogue and is threatening Prince Louis. He is armed and extremely dangerous. Shoot-to-kill authorization is in effect. Marcus realized he was now fighting on two fronts, against the immediate attackers and against his own organization, which was painting him as the threat. Any police units arriving on scene would be told he was the enemy, making it impossible for him to identify himself safely to potential backup. The sound of breaking glass from inside the school told Marcus that the attackers were now trying to breach the building. He had to make a decision: maintain his defensive position at the front entrance or move inside to directly protect Prince Louis. The decision was made for him when one of the fake maintenance workers flanked around the building and appeared at Marcus's side, weapon raised. Marcus spun and fired instinctively, his shot catching the attacker in the shoulder and sending him spinning to the ground. But the movement exposed Marcus to fire from the other attackers, and he felt a bullet graze his left arm as he dove for new cover. Marcus's earpiece crackled with Sarah's voice. "Marcus, they've breached the rear entrance. I'm in the safe room with Prince Louis and 3 other children who couldn't be evacuated in time. The door will hold for a while, but not forever." Marcus knew he had to reach the safe room before the attackers did. He began moving through the school building, using his intimate knowledge of the layout to stay ahead of the hostile forces converging on his position. As he moved through the corridors, Marcus could hear police sirens getting closer, but he also heard Inspector Hartwell's voice coordinating the response. "Target is inside the building with the prince. All units converge on the school and establish a perimeter. Thompson is considered armed and extremely dangerous." Marcus reached the safe room just as the first police units were surrounding the building. Through the reinforced window, he could see Prince Louis huddled with Sarah and the other children. The 8-year-old prince looked scared but calm, trusting in the adults around him to keep him safe. "Sarah, I'm outside. Let me in," Marcus called through the door. The heavy door opened just enough for Marcus to slip inside before Sarah sealed it again. The safe room was designed to withstand significant force and had independent air filtration and communication systems. It could theoretically hold out for hours against any conceivable attack. "Uncle Marcus!" Prince Louis ran to him, using the informal title the young prince had adopted for his longtime protector. "What's happening? Why are there bad men trying to get into our school?" Marcus knelt down to the prince's level, keeping his voice calm and reassuring despite the chaos around them. "Sometimes there are people who want to hurt others, Louis. But Sarah and I are here to make sure you stay safe. We're going to wait in this special room until more police officers come to help us." The other children in the room, 2 girls and a boy from Prince Louis's class, looked to Marcus with the trust that children naturally place in adults who project confidence and control. Marcus realized that his actions in the next few hours would affect not just Prince Louis, but several other innocent children who had been caught up in this conspiracy. Sarah was monitoring multiple radio frequencies, trying to distinguish between legitimate police response and the compromised elements within their own organization. "Marcus, I'm hearing conflicting reports. Some units are being told to breach the safe room to rescue the children from you, while others are being told to establish a perimeter and negotiate." Marcus understood the dilemma facing the responding officers. They were receiving contradictory information from different sources and had no way to know which orders were legitimate. Some would be told he was a rogue agent holding children hostage, while others might be told he was protecting them from an external threat. "Sarah, can you reach Deputy Chief Constable Morrison on the emergency line?" "I've been trying, but I think they're jamming our external communications. Someone doesn't want us talking to anyone outside their controlled channels." The sound of heavy equipment being moved outside the safe room indicated that the attackers were preparing to breach the reinforced door. Marcus checked his ammunition and realized he had perhaps 15 rounds remaining, not nearly enough for a prolonged firefight. "Sarah, I need you to take the children to the far corner of the room and create as much protection as possible using the furniture. If they breach that door, I'll try to hold them off long enough for you to escape through the emergency exit." The safe room had been designed with a concealed exit that led to the school's utility tunnels. It was meant as a last resort, but Marcus was beginning to think they might need to use it. Prince Louis looked up at Marcus with 8-year-old wisdom that seemed far beyond his years. "Uncle Marcus, are you going to be okay?" Marcus smiled at the young prince, remembering why he had dedicated his life to protecting innocent people like this brave little boy. "I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you get back to your mummy and daddy safely, Louis. That's a promise." The first explosive charge went off against the safe room door, filling the room with dust and debris, but failing to breach the reinforced barrier. Marcus knew they had perhaps minutes before the attackers would be through the door. His radio crackled with a new voice, one he didn't recognize, but that carried the authority of high rank. "This is Deputy Assistant Commissioner Phillips, Gold Command. All units hold position. We have credible intelligence that Detective Sergeant Thompson is protecting Prince Louis from hostile forces, not threatening him. Repeat, Thompson is the good guy here." Marcus felt a surge of hope. Someone with sufficient authority was finally cutting through the disinformation and setting the record straight. But he also knew that the attackers inside the building wouldn't be deterred by external police commands. The second explosive charge was larger, and Marcus could see daylight through cracks in the doorframe. The next charge would likely breach their defenses completely. "Sarah, get ready to move. When that door goes, we're heading for the emergency exit." As Marcus prepared for what might be his final stand between the attackers and the children he had sworn to protect, he reflected on the choices that had brought him to this moment. 12 years ago, he had taken an oath to serve and protect. Today, that oath was being tested in ways he had never imagined. The third explosive charge detonated with devastating force, blowing the safe room door completely off its hinges and filling the room with smoke and debris. Through the haze, Marcus could see armed figures preparing to storm the room. He raised his weapon and prepared to make his last stand, knowing that the next few seconds would determine whether Prince Louis lived or died, and whether the truth about this conspiracy would ever come to light. The smoke cleared just enough for Marcus to see 3 armed figures silhouetted in the destroyed doorway. But instead of the hostile faces he expected, he found himself looking at the tactical gear and weapons of what appeared to be legitimate police officers. The lead officer held up his hand in a stopping gesture. "Detective Sergeant Thompson, this is Inspector Kate Morgan, Counterterrorism Command. Lower your weapon. We're here to help." Marcus kept his gun raised, his finger on the trigger. After everything that had happened, he couldn't afford to trust anyone without proper verification. "Prove it. What's the authentication code for today's operation?" Inspector Morgan responded immediately. "Nightingale 77. Deputy Chief Constable Morrison sent us directly. We know about the compromised elements in your chain of command." Marcus recognized the code. It was part of a backup authentication system used only in extreme emergencies when normal command structures might be compromised. He slowly lowered his weapon, but remained ready to raise it again if necessary. "Where are the hostiles who were trying to breach this room?" "Neutralized or in custody," Morgan replied. "We had to move fast once we understood what was really happening here. Your emergency beacon and the deputy chief's intervention saved lives today." Sarah emerged from behind the furniture barricade with the 4 children, keeping them close as she assessed the new arrivals. Prince Louis stayed near Marcus, still trusting his longtime protector despite the chaos around them. "Uncle Marcus, are the bad men gone?" the young prince asked with the directness that only children possess. "Yes, Louis. These are the good police officers who came to help us." Inspector Morgan knelt down to Prince Louis's level, speaking in the gentle tone that all good officers learn when dealing with children who have experienced trauma. "Your Highness, I'm Inspector Morgan. We're here to make sure you get home safely to your parents. They're very worried about you." As the immediate danger passed, Marcus began to process the full scope of what had just occurred. "Inspector, what exactly are we dealing with here? This wasn't just a random kidnapping attempt." Morgan's expression grew serious as she gestured for her team to secure the area. "We're still piecing it together, but this appears to have been a complex operation designed to accomplish multiple objectives. The primary goal seems to have been kidnapping Prince Louis, but there's evidence suggesting it was also meant to eliminate you and potentially destabilize the entire Royal Protection Unit." The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. Someone had wanted him dead as much as they wanted to harm Prince Louis. Who's behind this? That's what we need to find out. Inspector Hartwell is already in custody, along with 6 others from your unit. But we suspect this conspiracy goes much higher than the Royal Protection Unit. As they prepared to evacuate the safe room, Sarah pulled Marcus aside. "There's something else you need to know. While we were locked in here, I managed to pick up some radio chatter from the attackers. They mentioned a Phase 2 and something about eliminating witnesses." Marcus felt a chill. If there was a Phase 2, it meant the immediate threat to Prince Louis was just one part of a larger plan. "What kind of witnesses?" "They specifically mentioned your name and said something about the Thompson problem needing to be resolved permanently." Inspector Morgan overheard the conversation and approached them. "That's why we need to move quickly. Our intelligence suggests there might be additional threats, possibly targeting other members of the royal family or other protection officers who might have uncovered parts of this conspiracy." As they prepared to leave the school, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. The attack had been too well-coordinated, too precisely timed, and too focused on specific objectives to be the work of ordinary criminals or even terrorist organizations. Someone with intimate knowledge of royal protection protocols had planned this operation. The evacuation from the school was conducted with military precision. Prince Louis and the other children were surrounded by protection officers as they moved to armored vehicles waiting outside. Marcus noticed that the legitimate police response had grown to include dozens of officers, specialized units, and even military personnel. As they drove toward a secure location, Inspector Morgan briefed Marcus on what they had discovered during the investigation of the attack. The maintenance van was equipped with sophisticated surveillance equipment, not telecommunications gear. They had been monitoring the school for weeks, learning routines, and identifying vulnerabilities. Marcus processed this information while keeping one eye on Prince Louis, who had fallen asleep against Sarah's shoulder despite the day's traumatic events. The resilience of children never ceased to amaze him. What about Inspector Hartwell? How long had he been compromised? We're not sure yet, but financial records suggest he's been receiving payments from shell companies for at least 6 months. The money trail is complex, but it appears to involve foreign interests with connections to organized crime. The picture that was emerging painted a conspiracy far more extensive than Marcus had initially realized. This wasn't just about kidnapping one child. It was about infiltrating and corrupting the entire system designed to protect the royal family. As their convoy approached the secure facility where Prince Louis would be reunited with his parents, Marcus received a call on his secure phone. "Deputy Chief Constable Morrison's voice carried a mixture of relief and concern. "Thompson, excellent work today. You may have prevented not just a kidnapping, but a much larger attack on the monarchy itself." "Sir, Inspector Morgan mentioned something about Phase 2. What else are we looking at?" "We've uncovered evidence suggesting today's attack was meant to be followed by similar operations targeting other young members of the royal family. The goal appears to have been creating chaos and fear that would fundamentally change how the royal family interacts with the public." Marcus understood the broader implications. If the royal family could not appear in public safely, if their children could not attend school normally, it would represent a victory for those who wanted to undermine the institution of the monarchy itself. "Sir, what's the status of our investigation into who's behind this?" "That's where things get complicated, Thompson. The money trail leads through several countries and involves individuals with connections to both organized crime and political extremist groups. This appears to be a convergence of different interests, all focused on destabilizing British institutions." As they arrived at the secure facility, Marcus watched Prince Louis being reunited with his parents. The Prince and Princess of Wales embraced their youngest son with a desperate relief that only parents can understand. Despite his 8 years, Prince Louis seemed to grasp the seriousness of what had happened and clung to his parents with unusual intensity. The Prince of Wales approached Marcus personally, extending his hand in gratitude. "Sergeant Thompson, my wife, and I will never be able to thank you enough for what you did today. You risked everything to protect our son." Marcus felt the weight of the royal family's gratitude, but also the responsibility that came with it. "Your Royal Highness, it's what I swore to do. Prince Louis is a remarkable young man, and I'm honored to be part of his protection detail." But even as Marcus accepted the thanks of the royal family, he knew his work was far from over. The conspiracy they had uncovered was still largely intact, with most of its leadership still unknown and free. Inspector Hartwell and his immediate conspirators were in custody, but the larger network remained active and dangerous. Inspector Morgan pulled Marcus aside for a private conversation. "Thompson, we need to discuss your future role in this investigation. Your actions today have made you a primary target for whoever is behind this conspiracy. We're recommending that you be placed in protective custody until we can identify and neutralize the remaining threats." Marcus looked back at Prince Louis, who was finally showing signs of the normal childhood energy that had been suppressed during the day's traumatic events. The young prince was already asking his parents when he could return to school and see his friends. "Inspector, I appreciate the concern, but I'm not going into hiding while there are still threats against the royal family. If they want me dead, it's probably because I'm close to uncovering something they don't want discovered. Thompson, we're talking about professional assassins with resources and international connections. This isn't just about bravery. It's about being smart enough to stay alive long enough to help us catch them." Marcus understood the logic, but he also understood that his best protection lay in being proactive rather than reactive. "What if instead of hiding from them, we use me as bait? If they want to eliminate the Thompson problem, let's give them a chance while we're ready for them." The idea was dangerous, but it had merit. By the end of the day, Marcus Thompson would agree to become the centerpiece of an operation designed to draw out the remaining conspirators and, finally, expose the full scope of the plot against the British royal family. The battle to protect Prince Louis had been won, but the war for the security of the monarchy was just beginning. 3 weeks after the attack at Lambert School, Marcus Thompson sat in a nondescript cafe in central London, knowing that somewhere in the crowded street outside, professional killers were watching him. The plan to use himself as bait had been approved by the highest levels of government, and Now he was living under constant surveillance, both from his protectors and from those who wanted him dead. The investigation had progressed rapidly once Inspector Hartwell and his immediate conspirators had been interrogated. The financial trail had led through a complex network of shell companies ultimately connected to a Russian oligarch named Viktor Petrov, who had lost billions when the British government had frozen his assets following international sanctions. But Petrov was just the money behind the operation. The actual planning and execution had been handled by others. Marcus sipped his coffee and pretended to read a newspaper while listening to the updates from his surveillance team through a nearly invisible earpiece. Inspector Morgan's voice was calm, but alert. "Thompson, we have movement from the blue van parked across the street. 2 individuals just exited and are walking in your direction." Marcus didn't look up from his newspaper, but his hand moved slightly closer to the concealed weapon under his jacket. After 3 weeks of playing bait, he had learned to trust the surveillance team completely while maintaining the appearance of being an unsuspecting target. "Copy. What's the assessment?" "Still evaluating. They're moving like professionals, but they could be window shopping. Stay alert, but maintain your cover." The past 3 weeks have been a masterclass in patience and nerve. Marcus had deliberately made himself visible around London, following predictable routines that would allow potential attackers to plan an operation against him. But each appearance was carefully choreographed, with dozens of surveillance officers and armed response units positioned to intervene at the first sign of trouble. The strategy had already yielded results. 2 separate assassination attempts had been thwarted, leading to the arrest of 6 additional conspirators. Each arrest provided more pieces of the puzzle, revealing a conspiracy that reached into multiple countries and involved an alliance between organized crime, political extremists, and disgruntled intelligence operatives. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Stop looking for us, or the next target won't be you." The message was immediately traced by the technical team monitoring all of Marcus's communications, but he knew from experience that it would lead to another dead end. A prepaid phone purchased with cash and abandoned after 1 use. But the message contained a threat that chilled Marcus more than any personal danger to himself. If the conspiracy was threatening to target someone else, it could mean they were planning to go after another member of the royal family or another protection officer who had been involved in exposing their operation. Marcus activated his emergency communication protocol. "Control, I just received a threat suggesting they might target someone else. We need to review security for all potential secondary targets immediately." Inspector Morgan's response was immediate. "Copy. We're already monitoring increased chatter suggesting they might be planning something bigger. Intelligence services from 3 countries are reporting unusual activity among known associates of the original conspiracy." As Marcus left the cafe, following his predetermined route through central London, he reflected on how much his life had changed since that Tuesday morning at Prince Louis's school. He had gone from being a protection officer focused on keeping one child safe to being the central figure in an international investigation involving multiple intelligence agencies. The irony wasn't lost on him that by trying to kill him, the conspirators had actually given law enforcement the opportunity to expose their entire network. His survival and willingness to act as bait had turned him from a target into a weapon against those who threatened the royal family. "Thompson, we have a problem." Inspector Morgan's voice carried an urgency that made Marcus immediately alert. "We just received intelligence that suggests tonight's operation might be a diversion. There are indicators suggesting a separate team might be planning an attack on Kensington Palace or focused on protecting you." Marcus felt his blood run cold. The ultimate target had always been the royal family, and his role as bait might have inadvertently drawn protection resources away from where they were really needed. What's the assessment of the threat level? High confidence, but we're still trying to confirm details. We need to make a decision about whether to abort your operation and redirect resources to palace security. Marcus didn't hesitate. Redirect everything to the palace. I can take care of myself, but if they're planning something against the family, that has to be the priority. But even as he said it, Marcus realized this might be exactly what the conspirators wanted, to force law enforcement to choose between protecting him and protecting the royal family. By threatening both targets simultaneously, they were creating a situation where resources would be stretched thin and mistakes might be made. Marcus changed his route, heading toward Kensington Palace instead of his planned destination. If there was going to be an attack on the royal family, he wanted to be there to help stop it. His training and experience in palace security procedures might be critical in identifying threats that other officers might miss. Thompson, negative on the course change. We need you to maintain your planned route to draw off any surveillance from the real operation. Inspector, with respect, my primary duty is to protect the royal family. If they're in danger, I need to be there. Thompson, the best way you can protect them right now is to continue drawing the attention of the assassination teams we know are tracking you. Let us handle palace security. Marcus understood the logic, but struggled with the emotional reality of potentially being absent during an attack on the people he had sworn to protect. His entire career had been built on being there when protection was needed, not playing decoy while others faced a real danger. His phone rang with a call from Deputy Chief Constable Morrison. Thompson, I need you to listen carefully. We have credible intelligence that suggests tonight's threats are designed to overwhelm our response capabilities. They want us to spread thin, try to protect multiple targets simultaneously. Sir, what's the recommendation? We're implementing a concentrated defense strategy. All members of the royal family are being moved to secure locations with enhanced protection details. Your role remains the same. Continue to draw out the remaining conspirators so we can eliminate them. Marcus felt a mixture of relief and continued concern, knowing that Prince Louis and his family were being moved to maximum security locations helped. But he also understood that the conspiracy had demonstrated remarkable intelligence about royal protection procedures. They might have planned for this contingency as well. As evening approached, Marcus found himself in Hyde Park, following a route that would take him through several areas where an assassination attempt might be feasible. The surveillance team had identified at least 3 different groups that appeared to be tracking his movements, suggesting that the final confrontation was approaching. Thompson, we have confirmation of hostile teams converging on your location. This appears to be it. They're making their move tonight. Marcus felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that accompanied the transition from waiting to action. After 3 weeks of being hunted, he was finally going to face his pursuers directly. Copy. What's the tactical situation? We count at least 8 hostiles approaching from 3 different directions. Armed response units are in position, but they're going to try to take you down before we can intervene. Marcus found a position behind a large oak tree that provided cover while still allowing him to observe the approaches to his location. He checked his weapon and prepared for what he knew would be the final confrontation of this 3-week operation. But as the first shots were fired and Marcus found himself in another gunfight, this time with the full support of a coordinated law enforcement operation around him, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was still missing from their understanding of the conspiracy. The question that haunted him as bullets flew through the darkness of Hyde Park was whether eliminating these assassination teams would truly end the threat to the royal family, or whether this entire operation was just one more layer in a conspiracy that went deeper than anyone had yet realized. The answers would come in the aftermath of the final confrontation, when investigators would discover evidence that this entire conspiracy had been just the beginning of a much larger plan to reshape the British political landscape. Marcus Thompson's refusal to follow a shocking command had not just saved Prince Louis's life. It had exposed a plot that threatened the very foundations of the constitutional monarchy. As the gunfire subsided and the last of the conspirators were either captured or eliminated, Marcus realized that his real work as a protector of the crown was just beginning. The royal family would need guardians who understood that in the modern world, threats could come from anywhere, including from within the very institutions designed to provide protection. In the weeks and months that followed, Marcus would be promoted to head a new counterintelligence unit within the Royal Protection Service, specifically designed to identify and neutralize insider threats. Prince Louis would return to school under enhanced security protocols, but with his natural curiosity and joy intact. And the lesson learned from those shocking commands would reshape how the royal family was protected for generations to come. The story of how one man's conscience and courage saved a young prince became a classified legend within British law enforcement, a reminder that sometimes the greatest threats come not from obvious enemies, but from those who have sworn to protect and serve. Marcus Thompson had proven that when faced with a choice between blind obedience and moral courage, there was really no choice at all.